Hello friends, and welcome to another episode of Team Jesus Outdoors. Hey guys, today I'm bringing you the third and final video in a three-part series of videos describing how I went about selecting the perfect turkey gun setup for me. Now guys, full disclosure, I started with my Mossberg 12 gauge 835 Ultimag, and the reason I started with that gun is because that's the gun that I bought in the 90s when those guns were in the early 90s when those guns were relatively new to the market. Mossberg was the first company to bring a 3.5 inch 12 gauge to the market. Now I say that because if I were starting from scratch today, or if I were buying a new shotgun today for a dedicated turkey gun, I don't know if I would go with the 12 gauge. Ammo technology has gotten so good that 20 gauges and even 28 gauges have become very, very viable options. If you don't care to spend the money for TSS, tungsten shot, then a 410 is even a viable option. But I think that there's still some advantages to going with the 12 gauge, and so I'm not saying that I wouldn't buy another Mossberg 835. I'm just saying that I would consider other options. So anyways guys, so I started with my Mossberg Ultimag 835 12 gauge. I decided to go with an optic, so I put a red dot on it. Was not happy with the red dot, so I took the red dot off and I put a Hawk Vantage IR turkey dot scope on top of this thing and got it sighted in. That was the last video. I narrowed down my ammo choice. I fairly easily narrowed down my ammo choice to the Winchester Longbeard XR 3-inch number 6s. I tested some 3.5 inch shells. I tested some other 3-inch shells. I even tested a couple of 2 3/4 loads. But I decided that the Winchester Longbeard XR just shot really nice out of this gun, and you hear nothing but great things about that ammo. So once I had the gun, the scope, and the ammo pretty much all selected, decided that was definitely what I was going with. And even though the factory choke patterned pretty well in this gun, I decided that I would do myself a disservice if I didn't pick up at least a couple of aftermarket chokes and give them a try. So we're going to compare today the AccuMag choke that came with the gun, which is an extra full. We're going to compare that choke against the Carlsons turkey choke, which is a little tighter constriction, and the True Glow gobble stopper turkey choke, which is also a little tighter constriction. Well, let's fling some of these and see how this goes. We're going to compare these chokes at 25 yards, because to me that's about the most common distance for shooting turkeys. I'll probably take whichever choke I feel patterns better and try it at 40, just to get an idea what it looks like at what I feel is kind of the max range for turkey shooting, at least with lead ammo. But we're going to start at 25 yards. All right, we're going to start off with the Mossberg AccuMag choke, because that's already what's in the gun. Well, we knocked the box over. That was to be expected. All right, here we go with the True Glow choke. Alright, so my point of impact was a little lower with the gobble stopper, but that could be accounted for. That's not a big deal. It does look like it patterned a little bit tighter. The True Glow Gobble Stopper choke tube is actually shot an actually pretty impressive pattern, given that this is a budget choke tube. Retail on these is about 30 bucks. I actually picked it up on eBay for 15. This is the Carlsons ported turkey choke tube. This is a 679, this is a 675 constriction, where the True Glow is a 675. Pretty similar constriction to the True Glow. Let's see how the Carlsons shoots. And the Carlsons choke. Honestly, I think all three choke tubes threw a pretty respectable pattern. I really expected the Carlsons tube to throw a whole lot better pattern. So I've moved the target out now to about 40 yards. And this to me is about the max range that I think anybody should be shooting for turkey. I'm going to switch back to the AccuChoke. I don't know that I see enough difference between the patterns of the AccuChoke and the two aftermarket chokes to make the aftermarket chokes worthwhile, honestly. So I'm going to pull the Carlsons choke out, put the AccuChoke tube back in, and we're going to try this at a longer distance. We're going to try this at 40 yards. All right, back to the AccuChoke tube at 40 yards. Fellas, if you ever find yourself without a choke wrench and you need to remove your choke, I have found that a quarter works perfectly as a choke wrench for just about every 12 gauge gun I've ever tried. Literally works just as good as any choke wrench I've ever used. Alright, so our next tightest restriction is the True Glow. This is the True Glow extended turkey choke tube. This is the Gobble Stopper. Adjust the True Glow scope up a couple inches, inch and a half. Because I think I'm going to leave the True Glow choke tube in the gun. Well, we have a winner. I think I decided that I like the True Glow pattern the best, both at short yardage and at distance. In fact, I've adjusted the scope up a little bit because the True Glow was hitting an inch and a half low. So I've adjusted the scope up a little bit, and I'm very happy with the results of this True Glow. That is a devastating pattern. Nice tight pattern, but not ridiculously tight. I'm very, very happy with this. I'm leaving the True Glow Gobble Stopper choke in the gun. The scope is zeroed. This gun is ready to hunt in April. So friends, what's the perfect turkey gun for you? Well, only you can decide that. And I think you have to first decide on a gauge. What gauge turkey gun do you prefer? Obviously 12 gauges have been used for decades, super effective. 12 gauge will get the job done. Even whether you're using 2 3/4, 3 inch, or 3.5 inch loads, doesn't matter. Turkey 12 gauge is a great caliber for 12 gauge is just a great caliber for turkey. 12 gauge is also about the cheapest gun to shoot because there's some fantastic lead loads out there for turkey. And I think those lead loads are effective at least out to 40 yards. But 20 gauge is also a viable option, especially if you're willing to entertain using TSS shot. And don't forget the little 28 gauge. A lot of guys swear by a 28 gauge. So guys, you got to decide what size, what gauge are you going to go with? 12, 20, 28, or maybe even 410 if that's your thing. What action are you going to go with? Auto loader, pump, brake action. Then of course your next decision is, are you going to shoot the bead on the shotgun, or are you going to go with an optic? And I highly recommend going with some sort of good optic. Aiming with a bead is relatively ambiguous. Aiming with an optic is precise. I believe you do yourself a great favor by putting an optic on your dedicated turkey gun. But friends, you have to decide what's the right turkey gun for you. I'm very, very happy with the performance of my Mossberg 835 with the Hawk scope and that True Glow gobble stopper choke tube. But you decide for you. God bless tight lines. We'll see you guys on the water or out in the turkey woods.